On October 13th, 1972, 45 people boarded a small plane, young athletes, their coaches, family members, and friends. They were laughing, joking, full of excitement. The flight from Montevideo to Santiago was supposed to take just a few hours, but as they crossed the Andes Mountains, a storm rolled in. Visibility dropped to zero. The pilot misjudged the altitude, and suddenly, the mountains appeared right in front of them. The plane slammed into the side of a mountain. The tail broke off. The wings were torn away. When the snow settled, only 33 people were left alive. They were stranded at 12,000 feet in freezing temperatures with almost no food and no shelter. The radio was dead. Rescue planes flew overhead but couldn't see them. They were alone. The survivors huddled together inside the broken fuselage. They melted snow for water and rationed tiny bits of chocolate. Days turned into weeks. Hope began to fade. Then came the hardest moment of all, when they realized they could no longer survive on the food they had. In the most desperate act of survival, they decided to do something unthinkable: to eat the bodies of those who had died. It was a decision that broke their hearts, but saved their lives. Just when things couldn't get worse, an avalanche buried the fuselage, killing 8 more people. The rest dug themselves out with bare hands, covered in ice and tears. Still, they refused to give up. They prayed, they told stories, they comforted one another. And 2 young men made a promise: they would climb over the mountains and find help, or die trying. After 2 months on the mountain, Fernando Parrado and Roberto Canessa set out on foot with nothing but a small backpack and a dream of survival. For 10 days, they climbed over freezing peaks, hungry, weak, and frostbitten, but they never stopped walking. On the 10th day, they saw a river, and on the other side, a man on horseback. Parrado shouted with the last of his strength, "We are survivors from the plane crash." Help had finally arrived. On December 20th, 1972, after 72 days trapped in the Andes, rescue helicopters finally reached the crash site. Of the 45 passengers, 16 had survived. They were frostbitten, starving, and broken, but alive. The world called it a miracle. They called it faith, friendship, and willpower. Years later, the survivors said, "We were not heroes. We were just people who refused to die." Their story became a lesson in resilience, that even in the coldest, darkest places, the human spirit can light a fire that refuses to go out. Sometimes life crashes without warning, but if you keep hope alive, you can climb out of the wreckage and find your way home. When you have nothing left but hope, hope is enough.